So I kept up with this game called Yandere Simulator and its progress quite religiously all throughout high school. Its development was just kind of bubbling in the background as videos I'd check out along with the rest of my For You page. I wasn't heavily invested, it was just something I saw and was like, I can't wait to play this game one day. Now talking about Yandere Simulator is like talking about a meteor that crushed a city where everything splintered, including the foundation, and everyone who was interested has now pretty much left. It's become just a smoldering crater with Yandev and his computer and a few children who still keep up with his posts and don't know about the controversies or are too dumb to understand the gravity of them. But I'm not really here to talk about the impact of the meteor or the fallout. I'm here to talk about the city. I can't tell if this metaphor is breaking apart or if I'm holding it somehow. Let's find out together, I guess. To catch up the people who don't know, Yandere Simulator is a sandbox game that centers on a yandere, which is a Japanese term for a person who has an obsession with their crush to the point where they are willing to kill those who stand in the way of their potential romance or relationship. This is a trope in a lot of Japanese anime, specifically harems, which are romances where there's one protagonist with multiple love interests. Yanderes usually appear as like maybe the third character to show up or way later, and nobody likes them. I refuse to believe people like these characters. They're always so boring, and they basically just have one gimmick that gets stale really quickly. I don't think they even usually get their own storylines because they're just that lame. The world of Yandere Simulator is essentially an old American man's version of what he thinks Japan is like, and all his knowledge of the country being exclusively from anime and manga. In Yandere Simulator Land, the academy the characters go to is called Akademi, like the Japanese pronunciation for academy. So they go to Akademi Academy. There's a character called Midori Green, which is the noun green twice. There's a club for every niche hobby. Simply telling your crush you like them requires rigid specifications of time and location, and holding an inconspicuous baseball bat will immediately get you put into the counselor's office. Somehow. There are a lot more examples, but it'd probably take too long, and I don't have the time or money that Yandev has. So today I want to talk very explicitly about the lore of this game, because I doubt that any of its secrets will be revealed to us anytime soon, considering I'll be in my 40s by the time the third rival is implemented. The yansim lore is very decentralized, is the best way to put it. While something like FNAF or Bending in the Ink Machine clearly have a proper plot behind everything, Yandere Simulator is just a lot of Yandev's random anime ideas that are awkwardly shoehorned in for no reason and add nothing to gameplay. And all of it is just really insane. I don't like repeating the title, but there really is no other way to put it. This will probably be the last time I think about the series or talk about it, so I just wanted to give it my own goodbye. Also, I wanted to draw a sailor uniform for my sprites, so this is the video you're getting this month. At some point, I should talk about topical things so that I can get more money to live each month, but I really can't be bothered. For some reason, this is the game I have a lot to say about, and not the one about murderous animatronics. Alright, so what is game? Yansim features the yandere as the player character, and the goal is to kill or defeat a rival for the affections of the love interest, aka the senpai, every week for 10 weeks. And all these rivals are also very cliche tropes of popular harem anime. We have tsundere girl, passive girl, loud girl, shy girl, sports girl, inappropriate paradynamic age gap girl, inappropriate paradynamic age gap girl take two, inappropriate paradynamic age gap girl, but with incest, and finally, the president. You have a week to eliminate your rival because they will confess their feelings to Senpai by the cherry blossom tree on Friday at specifically 6 p.m. The reasoning is that there's like some myth that you won't get rejected if you do this, but honestly, I can't imagine a world where the delinquent girl or the teacher or the nurse would ever ask you out like this. I'm assuming certain rivals will get different deadlines, but this is the most common one for the girls that are in love with Senpai. This game obviously took off in popularity from 2014 to 2017 because it's a really interesting concept. With games like Hitman, a character going around murdering people is part of the job. This was a high school student. There's something very dark about what is usually considered to be such a light and innocent place twisted into something so gory and horrific. So you get to play a killer, and you also have to keep up this facade as a normal teenager so that people don't get suspicious. Inevitably, you get a lot of interesting ways to defeat rivals, from pacifism to just having no restraint at all. It's great, and as 13-year-olds, we were all super hyped about having such an edgy sandbox game. We were watching YouTubers clean up blood and chainsaw classmates to our heart's content. So at this point, you might be thinking, where is the lore? And what could it possibly be? Because this game seems pretty standard, you know? Kill rivals or use the numerous elimination methods to get rid of them. Well, there's also a grand conspiracy going around the story, and our main character, specifically tied to her mother, and the final rival too. From what I've seen of Yandev's presence online, he seems to be the type of writer who loves over-explanatory lore for everything, but he can't keep anything to himself, which is why you get these stupidly lengthy monologues from characters without making any effort to make them sound human. That's also how you get novel-length character biographies. And Yandev is interesting because for the longest time, I thought that he had mapped everything out timeline-wise, but now it's clear that he's still writing the story as he goes, and is quite bad at keeping a clean and cohesive timeline. That to me indicates that a lot of things will be really stupid and won't make sense, and because of that, I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with this. Also, just to denote something real quick, whenever I try to interpret the lore of a game that is intentionally hidden, I tend to take a more psychological approach. I like doing that. Most people create timelines, plot out happenings, etc., but I'm generally not interested in that. I investigate it on a meta level in terms of how good the creator themselves are on planning a story out, and what canon is from their writing methods. Just to let you all know, in case someone's like, why didn't you make a giant timeline like MatPat? That's why. I'm not interested in that. So let's get into it. Lore thingy number 1. Info-chan. Alright, I think a good place to start would be with Info-chan. Info-chan is essentially your oracle. She provides you with the materials to help you get away with your murders and knows pretty much everything going on at the school. The way she trades information is via blackmail and, panty shots. I really hope that's the only time I have to mention that in this video. The thing about Info-chan is that she's not really a student. She doesn't attend classes. She just texts people when she wants something from them, or they text her when they want something from her. And how can she be an urban legend if people use her for info? No idea. I guess the students don't gossip about the ethereal god hacker who can put her app on your phone somehow. And funnily enough, there's this mysterious padded room in Yandere Simulator where if you peek in, you can see her. So clearly, she's not a cryptid drug dealer, right? People know she's there and exists. The reason Infochan helps you out at the beginning is because she hates Osana Najimi, your first rival, for some unexplained reason and wants her dead. And since her and Ayana have the same goals, they work together to eliminate Osana, or ensure that the confession scene never happens. Alright game, I'm with you so far? So let's figure this out. Osana is the first rival, and Infochan has a specific vendetta against Osana. We don't need to know the reason, but does Infochan have specific vendettas for the other rivals by coincidence as well? Because that sounds really weird, right? You can really feel the hand of the author there. Every week is just Ayana realizing there's another girl in love with Senpai, and then receiving a conveniently timed text from Infochan being like, so I really hate the nurse too, can you kill her as well? And the week after you've killed the nurse, she's like, so I'm not really down with the teacher either, can you get rid of her too? And our protagonist is too stupid to realize that this might be a trap of some kind. I'd say it's not very out of character though. So Infochan is our bridge into the larger conspiracy that permeates the entire game. We don't really know her allegiance, there have been some speculations on it. The first theory is that she's the actual final love rival for Senpai's affections. He's been getting you to do all the dirty work and then betraying you to get Senpai. This is the most fun theory that just as you murder the final rival, she immediately calls the police on you, and she now has no competition for Senpai's affections. But despite this being the most fun theory, it doesn't really account for every other bizarre lore thing in the game. We'll get into these later. The second theory is that her allegiance is with the Psychos. The Psychos are basically the Stark Industries of the Yansim world. They are a huge electronics company, they mass produce everything, and you get the gist. They're also used as a plot hole filler for everything in the game. Why are the police so incompetent during multiple murder sprees? The Psychos paid them off because they're so rich. How did a teenager get away with the murders of 10 of her classmates? The Psychos managed to manipulate both the media and the police because they're so rich. How are teachers getting rehired even though they get killed by the Yandere? Because the Psychos are so rich and epic that all the teachers want to work there anyway, even though their life will be on the line. The final rival you face, Megami Psycho, is the person to take over the Psycho Corps one day, so she's super perfect and uppity and really difficult to kill. Inevitably. It's unclear if she actually has a thing for Senpai, but it doesn't matter because she hates Ayano. This is actually why it makes no sense why Infochan would be helping you to defeat her, because if Megami specifically hates the player, then Infochan could easily take an out and get Senpai in the background during this whole drama. Also, Infochan isn't a psychopath like Ayano, so I highly doubt she would want Senpai's sister dead as well. The third theory is that Infochan is betraying you because she, just hates you for murdering people or something, which is actually the one that makes the most sense practically, but makes no sense motive-wise. Infochan is giving you resources to kill people and clean up the murders, and at the end betrays you for killing people, which she helped with. So I don't know about that, it sounds really dumb. Apparently, it's morally okay that the murders of 10 girls are necessary to arrest the one person doing this. We'll have more evidence that way. I really hope that's where the story goes though, because I'd love to see how terribly that'll play out. Lore thingy number 2. The tapes. And now we need to get to the most important lore aspect of the game. The tapes. Like any fun game, the best part is listening to a bunch of tapes where characters just explain the lore to you in an obnoxiously long exposition. I understand a lot of people don't mind tapes in video games, but I find it to be a very annoying and boring way to distill information. That's just my opinion though. If you're not going to give me information in an interesting way and use the medium you're in unique ways, what's the point of having a lore-focused game? What's the point of having a narrative at all? You might as well just give me a Wikipedia article as DLC. If it's like a fun Easter egg thing and gives more context to what you're doing, it's nice, but if it's just the entire lore of the game, I don't know. I just don't find it particularly engaging. Okay, so there are currently 4 kinds of tapes in Yansim. The basement tapes, which are all found in the basement and relate specifically to Ayano and her family. We currently have 3 of these. The mysterious tapes, which are all about the journalist, a character from the prequel of the game. We have all of these. The headmaster tapes, which are all found in the headmaster's office and relate to the headmaster's involvement in the conspiracy. We also have all of these. The CEO tapes, which is very obviously about the CEO of Psycho Corp. So great! That's so fun, right? I got to listen to all of them. Yay! At least the dialogue is so bad that it's good. The funniest thing about the tapes is that it's clear that Yondev was really insecure about how it makes no sense to record yourself like this in 2025 when phones exist. So there's always a line like, "Thank God I recorded this message on a tape. I really needed to do this." There's also this thing where they do clear cliffhangers at the end of tapes, so they'll have a normal dialogue scene and then start talking about something interesting the audience might want to learn, and they're like, "Oh, probably switch the tape and then I'll talk about it." I don't think you need to change tapes that often, but I'm Gen Z. What would I know? The more recent tapes that got added are really awkward because the voice actors all quit because of that meteor I talked about earlier. So it's just this silent cutscene with this loud room tone buzzing in the background. It makes the scene near unwatchable because the characters are also not doing anything either, and the shot isn't interesting in any way. At least have the camera tilt down to show how vulnerable Senpai is or something. Like, it looks like a visual novel dialogue scene. I was hoping the voice actors would have returned just for this line though. If you have a crush on a guy and he rejects you and dates someone else, that is not the same thing as death. The work of a truly talented author. The basement tapes are the worst, in my opinion. So these are about Ayano's mother and how she is also a yandere and killed all of her rivals for her husband. For some reason, she decided to record herself talking to her senpai in the basement, I guess, for later. These yandere freaks, man. After she killed the rival, she just bound the senpai to her basement and trapped him there, which seems strange because why didn't she do that from the beginning? Just kidnap him. Why did you need to kill all the girls if you were just gonna take him to your basement later anyway? These psychopath women are real dumb. What the basement tapes reveal is that being a yandere is a generational thing, so every yandere finds their senpai after, I guess, killing a bunch of girls, and then the senpais get put in basements, where the yandere will force him to love her forever, and through his ambivalence they get married and have a child who will inherit this yandere gene. So being a yandere is innate, I guess. The police must be real incompetent to not figure this one out if there have been consistent generational murders. Also, usually every senpai or guy the yandere marries will apparently be mind broken, and this is another plot hole filler for a lot of things, like how come the torture basement was built with the husband's permission? They were just really mind broken or something. Cool. Aren't you glad you know that now? Like I said, the basement tapes are the most boring ones, and they reveal very little. They do give a reason for why Ayano's parents aren't in the story, and apparently they were going on vacation to meet up with someone in America or something. Obviously, the vacation thing is a lie. Can you imagine if it wasn't? My best guess is that Ayano's parents are actually chasing down the journalist who got destroyed by her years ago after he investigated their murders. I guess to kill the journalist or something? I don't know, it sounds really stupid, but this is the series where the dev put in a character called My Waifu in his own game with big tits and pink hair like some 13-year-old on DeviantArt. So the Headmaster tapes are the best ones because they're so unbelievably insane to me. Okay, the conceit of the tapes is that the headmaster who's currently running Academy was given a portable tape recorder by the CEO of Psycho Corp, who founded the school, and he told him to record his thoughts as a therapeutic thing, like as an audio journal. I guess the CEO is just really concerned about his mental health or something. But I'm sure there's some stupid and convoluted Yondev explanation for this. The headmaster's name is Kocho Suyuno, and the tapes follow his start at Academy as a young principal to pretty much the present time. This one's fun because you get the most information about Academy itself. It's being entirely funded by the Psycho Corps. It's meant to be mainly for elite students, and it was all made for his eldest daughter, Ichiko's Psycho. I think what I find funniest about these tapes is the lengths that Yandev would go to justify Academy's existence. It's been confirmed that all the characters in Yansim are 18 plus, so why are they going to high school? Oh, it's because Ichiko wanted it to simulate a high school because she likes high schools or something. Why do all of them have stupidly on the nose nicknames like Fureru Jonzu or Gima Taku? It's because Ichiko liked nicknaming and it just stuck. Like, There didn't need to be an explanation. We already know it's stupid, just let it be stupid. Explaining it is somehow more embarrassing. Returning to the tapes, firstly, there is some weirdness with Ichiko herself. So, despite having this entire college made for her, Ichiko decides to not inherit Psycho Core, and she gets into an argument with her father and leaves the country. And Ichiko is gone for basically the whole story as a result. There is this weird implication that the headmaster actually remembers her having a twin sister, but his memory seems to have been manipulated or something. In fact, a lot of older people about the headmaster's age have what is called Ichiko syndrome, where they remember Ichiko having a twin sister even though there's no evidence of this. I think this is just a Mandela effect thing, but sure, why not? I have no idea how that's going to be explained. Anime is actually weirdly notorious for having fictional syndromes, so this isn't that off base or weird, but still. So here's my take on the Ichiko syndrome thing. Theory 1 is that there was a twin sister, but all evidence of her existence has been intentionally scrubbed for some reason. But this doesn't make a lot of sense. I already said that Ichiko was a rebel herself, so there's no reason the Psycho clan would actually want to get rid of her. Also, this only affects old people, so I doubt there actually is a twin sister. There's also theory 2, which is that the twin sister is actually Ichiko's aunt, who also disappeared before, and is a ghost who lived in Academy back then or something, who might also be fungirl. Both girls are psychos who disappeared under mysteriously coincidental circumstances. That would also explain why older people remember her and not younger people, since they're too young to remember her at all. It's like a generational thing that these girls keep disappearing, kind of like the Yandere gene. Theory 3 is that this is some alternate universe type BS, where there was a timeline where Ichiko's twin sister existed, and another where she didn't have a twin sister. And the one we're living in is the one where she didn't exist. The reason older people vaguely remember her is because this edit in the timeline happened in the 1980s during Ryoba's murder spree. Time travel in Yandere Simulator. Why not? We already have Yandere genes in high school for 18-year-olds. Why not have time travel too? Let's try succubi next. Really switch things up. This theory is really dumb and pointless and adds nothing to the story, so I'm pretty sure it's canon. And finally, we have the mysterious tapes, which are all about the journalist. The journalist is a character who exists in 1980s mode, which is when the current Yandere's mother, Ryoba, existed. 1980s mode is very unnecessary and definitely should have been worked on after the main game was completed, but I guess it's part of the lore now. So isn't that fun? You play as Ryoba murdering all her classmates, and there's a journalist who is the only one who knows you're the killer. Ultimately, Ryoba gets away with everything, and the journalist's reputation is ruined. These tapes have their existence over-explained again, too, stupidly. He decided to start recording these tapes to run through his backstory after 3 decades. For some reason. They're scattered around the school by Infochan, and it's unclear if she wants people or Ayano to listen to them. The journalist is a very boring character, like an old noir detective who's a bit pathetic. He eventually marries someone who's hinted to be another Yandere, so this character also probably is related to the Aishi family or something. The journalist is only important because his daughter is pretty much confirmed to be Infochan, and so now there's some big generational story coming together in the final game, like it's fate or something. There will always be a journalist, a yandere, and a psycho doing their own thing every generation. I guess. The journalist in current times isn't in the story because he's being stalked by Ryoba in some other country for a bit. This actually puts Info-chan in an even more awkward position as a character because what is she doing? If she hates her father, she's helping a murderer because she's spiteful? And finally, the CEO tapes have not yet been fully implemented, and I don't think they will anytime soon. The meteor still seems to be smoking somehow. Alright, lore thingy number 3. The Ghost. The Ghost is in the third floor girls' bathroom, and it's one of the biggest mysteries in Yandere Simulator, and the one most people remember really well, since she basically existed since the game's inception. As expected, Yandev wasted no time in telling us the story behind her, though. The ghost in the bathroom is Sumire Saitozaki, the first character killed by Ryoba Aishi in the 1980s for talking to Senpai, or having a crush on Senpai, basically. Her soul didn't rest, so she ended up just lingering there and is out for vengeance. She will likely attack the player in the present day since Ayano is Ryoba's daughter or something. Otherwise, she might be a DLC villain for either the 1980s or the modern game. It's also likely that the only way to kill her is with the Occult Club. Besides that, not much else is going on here. Also on the topic, the fanwiki says that Sumire's parents eventually gave up on the idea that her killer would be found one day, but they never stopped missing her, which obviously they never stopped missing her. She was their daughter, who was killed. Why was it written like that? If that's how Yondev himself phrased it, I wouldn't be very surprised. Lore thingy number 4. Magical girl Pretty Miyuki. Okay, so no. Just no. I refuse to talk about the stupid Madoka Magica Evangelion parody that Yandev shoehorned into this game and forced two voice actors to talk about for weeks. I'm not. I'm just not doing it. Not today, bucko. Find another channel. I will say that their conversations reminded me of those really fake gaming podcasts on TikTok where they're like so obviously scripted that you get a weird amount of enjoyment out of them.
That Sonic isn't actually fast.
Just sped up.
No, he's not actually fast. Fam, come on, bro.
That's the only good thing that came out of listening to these kids' conversations. And that's all I have to say. Trust me, I'm saving you so much time and energy by not delving into this. Lore thingy number 5. The Basu sisters. Basu and Basu are very minor characters in the Yandere Simulator universe that only Yandev has given an abundance of thought to. I guess I could say that about every other random thing in this game, though. The most players would know about this character is that Basu has a ring that you can steal, and if you take it to the cherry blossom tree, some mysterious voice would say, "That ring," or something. There's a possibility that this ghost is the mother of Basu and Basu, and they're connected somehow. So that's it, right? There's nothing else here. They're just random characters with a cool Easter egg. Obviously not, idiot. Of course we all know that Basu is actually a nickname for succubus, because that's what she canonically is. And guys, wait for it, but Incubasu is a nickname for incubus. Do you get it yet? How are you gonna explain these nicknames though, Yandev? Did they come up with it themselves and just really hope that no one knows English? What I'm gonna tell you is all canon, so please ensure you're listening carefully. The Basu sisters are immortal demons who are attending academy in order to find someone. The motivation is vague, but it seems like they're mostly looking for their mother to talk to, or maybe a murderer to enact vengeance of some sorts, like every other ghost in the school. Additionally, they steal the dreams of men to live, which I don't really know how that works, to be honest. I don't think going to a high school is the best way to find men who dream. At least, Saki steals the dreams of men, while Inkyu, on the other hand, needs to kill to live or something. Also, they're more than 200 years old and likely exist in 1980s mode too. These characters have so much pointless lore about them that I legitimately can't believe that they're in the game at all. Why are there succubi here? They're not even like rivals, they're just here for some reason. What is the point? Look, I like side lore as much as the next person. AFK Arena has it too, but isn't it more productive to add all this side lore stuff after you completed the main core of the game? It's so irrelevant to the player. Her eye color should be considered a spoiler. Don't question about her eyes. She lies and says they're contact lenses. Almost every character has multicolored hair. What do you mean there needs to be an explanation for her unique eye color? Are we in Psyche K right now? What is happening? Lore thingy number 6. Fungirl. Fungirl is like the Abed of the Yandere Simulator universe. I don't know if that's a good comparison, but to elaborate, she is the only character who knows she's in a game, kind of. You rarely interact with her, she mainly exists to counteract cheaters who are rewriting the code of the game. She comes in all sassy and tells you not to spawn Osana or not to cheat. Fungirl is probably the only good thing this game ever did, but the reason behind that is that she's an obvious ripoff of W.D. Gaster from Undertale, and once you realize that, a lot of the interesting and fun spookiness of her character whittles away. There's some stuff about timelines, and of course her relation to Ichiko's Psycho, but I have no clue how canon this is to the game's lore. According to the wiki page, Saisho Psycho invented a time machine to murder his own daughter instead of just murdering his own daughter. I thought the psychos were rich enough to get away with murder. I just find this one really funny. The idea of this man who not only created this giant tech company, but sure, he also created a time machine somewhere. I don't know, I'm just waiting on some aliens at this point. I just really want the player to find the time machine in this game. Do we get to go into Psycho's office and play around with it? Restart the whole game? Re-edit everything? The second timeline, according to the wiki, is one where he doesn't invent the time machine, but Fungirl is kind of just lost in time and space. And this is, again, exactly, and I mean exactly the same thing that happened to W.D. Gaster. Yandere is just J.K. Rowling. Not a single original thought in that head of his. Lore thingy part 7. Eugenics. Okay. Eugenics. I have no idea how I'm going to say that subheading without laughing. I'm gonna guess it'll take me at least 5 takes. So there's like an uncomfortable amount of eugenics in the Yandere Simulator lore, and despite the wiki and the blog being pretty open about it, it's insane to me how little people have actually investigated this. Alright, so Saisho Psycho, the guy who made Psycho Core, is apparently a Japanese nationalist who, after Japan's defeat in World War II and having fought in World War II, wanted to make Japan Japan great again with the Psycho brand, but then it turns out that Japanese culture has already assimilated itself into foreign culture quite well, and there's no need for attempting world dominance, and then he just gave up on his nationalism in death, basically. I know this already sounds beyond unbelievable, but all this Japanese nationalism stuff is tempered with a paragraph about how wise Psycho was to keep his nationalism and conservative beliefs hidden from the public because of how it would have outraged the public, and that has so many layers, and I don't know what to do with that except tell you about it. I couldn't help but have an image of Yandere's 40-something-year-old face flash in my mind while I was reading that. Perhaps one of the wisest decisions that the founder ever made was to hide the majority of his personal beliefs and political stances from the public. Most people would have been shocked or even outraged at some of his most conservative opinions. He was firmly convinced that the human race should proactively improve the quality of its population by excluding certain inferior genetic groups and promoting other superior genetic groups, and he knew that advocating for eugenics would annihilate his public image. So he kept this belief, along with many others, a closely guarded secret. This is probably the weirdest thing I've ever read in my life. Also, this is a game about a girl who kills for love. Why is this here? How has nobody taken the time to read this? I actually feel like I'm losing my mind here. By the way, this paragraph is from a character bio about a wife. She has no name. She's just the CEO's wife. Real bold to give this giant essay for a character who's referred to by her title. This is mainly here to explain her existence and how she was chosen as a wife for the Psycho group or something, but why is there so much here? Why is it all here? I'm so confused. After going through a great effort to ensure that his offspring were as genetically perfect as possible, he was determined to prevent his children from ruining the gene pool that he had carefully cultivated. To this end, he insisted on selecting the woman that his son would marry. The process was identical to the one that he used to choose his original secretary, except now he was also carefully screening applicants for hereditary diseases, undesirable genes, and so on. The number of women who wished to marry into the Psycho family was very high, but the number of valid candidates was extremely low. Eventually, however, he did find a woman who fulfilled his extremely specific criteria. This is the dumbest thing anyone has ever written in the last century. There are One Direction fanfictions by tween girls that are better than this. Is this compelling to people? The Psycho core was obsessed with eugenics. Why is this in the character bio if it was meant to be some big twist in the game? I thought nobody knew about the Psycho's political stances. Not only does this not matter to the lore of Yandere Simulator, it also has no bearing on any part of the game. Why did we need an explanation on why the Psychos are perfect? Are we advocating for eugenics because Megami Psycho turned out so perfect? How is eugenics going to possibly influence the story of the game? Which, I would like to reiterate, is about a high school girl murdering for love. Like I mentioned before, I find character bios and reading long stretches of exposition to be a pretty boring way to learn lore, but this character bio definitely proved me wrong. How do you go from a game about yanderes to eugenics and Japanese nationalism? How does that happen? How do you even get there? Like, what the hell? Part 8. The truth. Are we doing parts? I really need to start organizing my subheadings. Ultimately, the truth of the matter is, Yandere Simulator's lore makes very little sense. A part of me would like to think that everything we've gathered here has some sort of purpose in the story, but it's clear from researching into this that Yandev has next to no idea how everything is going to pan out, or is just going to keep retconning things until he's happy with it. Like, why are there succubi when half of the rivals haven't even been implemented yet? When Osana was first released, a lot of people who played the game immediately found ways to kill her quickly without witnesses, and this to Yandev was considered the incorrect way of playing the game, and so he went out of his way to employ methods to ensure more difficult speedruns and such. Eliminating Osana quickly became impossible. Despite being the tutorial rival, Yandev went out of his way to give her a bodyguard as well in the form of Raibaru, and Raibaru circumvented almost any way to kill her that players might have wanted to try, and that gives such an honest and transparent peek into what he's like as an author. He's weirdly controlling over how the story should be told and the way it should be interpreted, so he over-explains everything, even how you react to his writing. He wants to appear as a genius with all this unrelated lore and jam it into a game where it doesn't fit. He thinks he's so smart for coming up with a psycho-nationalistic CEO, or found ways to explain tape recorders in 2025, but it's just like, really stupid and dumb. There's no better way to say it. Maybe I would have found this compelling when I was in high school, but now it's just funny how bad it is. The strange thing is, since the game still hasn't been completed after 10 years now, it means that a lot of the timeline doesn't work as well anymore. Sideshow is going to be 100 years old if you still want the backstory that he fought in World War II, and 1980s mode is technically set in exactly 1989. I wouldn't be surprised if it's called 1990s mode soon. The fact the game is taking so long is going to really mess up a lore that's already quite badly messed up. I think Yandere is good at coming up with interesting ideas, but he is terrible at fleshing them out or even doing anything with them because he isn't a good writer and he isn't a good game designer. There couldn't be a more incorrect person to create this game, or really any game for that matter. He's obsessed with explaining every imperfection in Yandere Simulator like he's J.K. Rowling. I know I already said that, but these two are actually quite similar. He operates in the same way as her, where instead of changing something that might be a plot hole or mistake, he commits to it, then runs around trying to find justifications for it in lore in a really roundabout and unnecessary way. Because he's never wrong and doesn't want to be wrong, and instead of just picking an easier solution or changing the thing in the first place, he pretends like it's all leading to something important and mind-bending. There is no definitive lore in Yandere Simulator, and I think it's a real waste of your time finding one because it isn't worth it. Most of this lore makes no sense, is all over the place, and the twists are obvious because Yandere finds it difficult to hold back from his infinite-sized monologues. If you're there for the characters, there's definitely better ones out there, but I guess if you like the vacant smiles of the club leaders, you can stay here. This game was meant to be about a high school girl killing for love. It should have been simple. It shouldn't have been the length of a Persona game as he so clearly wanted it to be. I think almost any other game's lore is more worth your time. I'd say take Phasgu over this. My final thoughts. This game has been something I've been trying to let go of for a while. Like everyone, I was also affected by that said meteor, and it fully turned me away. It was the final straw for a lot of people, understandably so. I'm actually a big believer in separate art from the artist. I tend to see art as untethered to an artist, and that it's better to examine it on its own terms. I know that's a bit controversial, but that's just my opinion. And Yandere Simulator, as I've grown older, very clearly cannot hold up on its own terms. It's just bad. Like, really, really bad on its own. The most fun I had watching playthroughs of it was seeing YouTubers break the game. That already says a lot about it, you know? I think Yandev is not a good dev, and an even worse writer. But writing a bunch of lore is easier than coding the entire game, so he runs around making ideas that don't matter to the final product. It's kind of pathetic, actually. The lore, just like the game, is underbaked and embarrassingly boring. Unless you like Succubi, references to every pop culture anime under the sun, and eugenics. In that case, you might find this lore interesting. I recently watched the Curse of Yandere Simulator games video by Paper Whale, and despite how many of those games failed, I really do think that one day someone will make this game in its simplest and most basic form and make it fun and interesting to play. It's not going to be insanely long, it will commit and have a good fan base and game designer backing it, and when that day comes, I really hope whoever it is or who they are a good person or are good people who care about their fans. Until then, I suppose whoever is still keeping up with the development of this original game is stuck with the terribly directed visual novel scenes and terrifying silence. So that's it. That's most of the Yandere Simulator lore. If there's anything I missed, it probably didn't interest me enough and probably holds so little significance in the game that even Yandev has likely forgotten about it. I think Nemesis mode doesn't really matter. Same with any of the rivals, actually. I just realized I barely talked about any of the rivals. The rivals are the core of this game, but Yandev doesn't seem interested in properly writing them well or even adding them to the plot of Infochan or the Psychos or anything. So yeah, it's kind of sad, honestly. If you want to follow me on Patreon for early videos and a shout out, that would be very helpful. Or just subscribe so I can keep making videos. I need the motivation. I'm starting out now. I really like making these, so that would help. I think this is the most I will ever say about Yandere Simulator from now on, so let's let this game die the way it was supposed to, slowly bleeding out on the floor after getting chainsawed in the head.
Whoa, technology!